All right, so we got Theus waiting, and let's get started. In calling from New Mexico, we have Gina. She, her. Welcome to the line, Gina. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Not too bad. It says here you have spiritual gifts.
Yeah. Can you hear me pretty well? I just wanted to ask you
Yeah.
that. Okay. Yeah. So, can I just give you a little bit of my background first?
Yeah, if you, I mean, we don't need a life story, but you can do a little background because
Yeah, yeah,
I want to know about your spiritual gifts. But go ahead,
yeah, yeah. No, well, it's real short.
go for
Yeah,
it.
whatever's relevant.
Was raised Catholic. I'm sorry.
I just said whatever's relevant, whatever you think is meaningful to the story.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was raised Catholic. My husband was too. Basically just went to church. It was kind of more of like just tradition for me. Wasn't really something meaningful, I guess. Same with my parents, raised Catholic. It's just more of a tradition. And so same with us. We have two grown kids, and our kids were raised the same way. It just became more of a tradition for the whole family. So I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to really, what was going on in the church. So about 6 years ago, I just started to have, like, I knew things before they would occur. And like world events, local events, things like that. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't think it was, I wouldn't consider myself spiritual even in that respect. So someone suggested, go to this one. We have a pastor friend, and I went and talked to him, and he says, maybe it sounds like a spiritual gift kind of thing. And so I had never, ever opened the Bible before. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So that's part of the background too. Never had read the Bible or opened it. Never was encouraged to do so in the Catholic Church. We didn't do it as a family. So going into this, I know nothing about the Bible. I had never read it. So talking to this pastor, I had never heard of spiritual gifts. This was all new to me. So he's pointing me to the gifts, what they are, in the book of Corinthians. He's trying to help me understand what the heck they are. And so, just along this journey, it's really been only occurring for the last 6 years. And many things have been, like, as I said, knowing things, like world events. So again, it turned out I started getting dreams and visions, and then sort of just knowing things before they would occur, depending on what it was. Some of it was just family situations or maybe even world events. Again, I didn't know how would I know these things.
Hey, Gina. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're getting there or not, but like you've said things like world events and family things and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what that means because like I could say world events and I could mean specifically the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, or I could mean some war happened.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, you know. Like what specific are some examples of some things that you have predicted?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say I predicted, but I'll give you specifics.
Or foresaw, you could say. I don't know, whatever you think.
Okay. One was we had this was in like 2017. I was at work, and I work on an Air Force base, and as I was leaving the base to go to another building for a meeting. And as I was leaving, this is what the knowledge I was told. I was told the base is going on lockdown and there's an active shooter. In that moment, I didn't know what to do with that information. I just went along my way, went into my meeting room, and we have these tone alert radios on the wall that indicate, if there's something going on, they'll lock down the buildings. Well, within a few minutes of me getting into the meeting, the radios went on and said that there's an active shooter in the area, and it was not a drill. So our building was on lockdown, and so was the base. And they said there was an active shooter. And I was sitting there not knowing, like, how did I know that before it even occurred? There's no way I would have known that. And again, I didn't know what the heck, how I even knew that. This was in the very beginning of this. And
Well, to
then
be fair, you
another
didn't know.
incident shortly after that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Continue. I'll get there.
Okay. Another one was my husband's uncle was in the hospital, and he was on hospice, and he was dying. And about, I don't know, 2 weeks before he died, I was told the day he was going to die, like the date. And he died on that date, and nobody knew when a specific date he was going to die. But again, what are the odds that I would know the date before he died? Things like that. And so another one was, so then as time went on, I started to learn more and more, like maybe who was talking, God versus, maybe a dead relative. Because I didn't know like what the spiritual world was all about. I'm still trying to understand all these things. But anyway, that pastor had pointed me to something called the word of knowledge. And so one day, I woke up and I was told this was the knowledge that someone was considering suicide. And we were sitting down for breakfast, and the next moment, my daughter gets a text on her phone saying her friend was considering suicide. He said he was at his grandma's house and he had a bottle of pills and he wanted to kill himself. Eventually, she ended up going over there and talking to him. But long story short, how would I know that in advance?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the odds that he would get a text? After that word came to me. And then same thing with my niece. My niece has 2 teen boys. And so about a year after that,
Gina.
very similar message.
Gina, let's pause.
It was about suicide.
Gina,
okay.
Gina, let's pause and take a look at some of this stuff. So,
okay,
I have a ton of questions, but there were specific things about how you phrase stuff. You're like, how would I know? Well, you didn't know. You got the impression of something or word, or you said several times spoke. So are you hearing an audible voice with a clear message, or do you get an impression?
It's actually been both. It depends on what is being said, I guess. There's been audibles, and then I guess what you'd call like impressions, like knowledge is put there, or sometimes it's through a dream.
Okay.
Maybe there's information passed in a dream.
Sure. Well, so if I'm trying to be as charitable as possible, either through a dream or sometimes through an audible, like hearing words, and I'd love to know what the heck that sounds like, or sometimes through an impression. So by 3 different types of mechanisms, you get what this pastor friend is calling a word of knowledge. And then your question is, how did I know that? Well, you didn't. How many times has that happened where the thing that you got the bit of knowledge about didn't come true?
I don't know, because to be honest, I haven't taken statistics on it.
You don't keep a diary of these
messages. Has that happened? But has that ever happened? Can you think of even one time?
That it didn't happen?
Yeah, that you got a piece of knowledge on something and it ended up not being real.
To be honest, I don't know offhand. There's just been
do you not keep
so many
diary of these
things that have gone on. A lot of it has been not necessarily, as the time has gone on, it's just been more family related, and then just more in my life.
Yeah. So why don't you keep a diary of these so that then you can say, okay, I got this word of knowledge, this impression on this date and this time. And then at a later time, that's when it appears to come true. Then you would have at least something, because right now you can't even demonstrate that you ever got any sort of advanced knowledge. We just have to take your word for it. And we don't know how often
Right.
you're
No, I get
like,
that. Yeah.
hang on. We also have no way of telling how often you're right or not. But you started off with the call by saying these are spiritual gifts. What would possibly be the purpose? I'm assuming you're guessing that these things come from a God. So what purpose would a God have to give you vague impressions of things that are sometimes correct and sometimes not?
Okay, I can. I was going to lead you that way, but I kind of wanted to paint a picture of that first. But I will answer that question. Along the way, some of the knowledge passed to me has pointed me out of the Catholic Church and into a church where I can learn about the Bible. That's what some of the audibles have been, pointing me to specifically to the Bible, reading the Bible, telling me to understand what's in it, telling me to understand, learning more about Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit. So some of the messages have been pointing me to specific people in my life, mostly family members, who we would call unsaved. I'm gonna say, God telling me to go talk to one of my aunts about Jesus. She was unsaved. Tells me she's spiritually dead. That's been now pointing me to many people in my family and neighbors and friends. And that's where a lot of this has gone. Now, ordinarily, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not the type of person who talks to religion about religion to most anyone. It's just not my style. If you go back 6 years, I could give a crap about what people's religions are, what their beliefs are.
Sorry, Gina.
It's not something.
I'm sorry, Gina. If I can just kind of focus in a little bit more here. We asked you what you're talking about in terms of the I'll use the word visions briefly, but please understand, I'm not trying to straw man what you're saying. I understand you're talking about all these different ways you're seeing these. You're getting this foresight, right? We asked you what you mean by that. And you gave us some examples of some family members. You gave us some example of people around you, a base that you once lived on where you predicted there might be a shooting event and whatever. Now you're talking about when Matt asked specifically, like, what's the purpose of this? You said, oh, well, I'm helping people with their religion. And I left the Catholic Church and started studying the Bible. I'm just curious to know why that's the end game here. You said you were able to predict a mass shooting, or sorry, not a mass shooting, but an active shooter event at a military base. Here in America in this year, there have been 531 mass shootings where over 4 people were wounded or killed. Just a little bit ago, let's see here. What's this big one here? I've got a list of them here. On October 25th, 19 people were killed and 13 more were injured in Maine. Why didn't you get prediction about any of those? Why didn't you stop any of those things from happening? Why is the prediction more dedicated towards helping people come to the religion that you also believe in, as opposed to stopping actual danger and actual life-threatening issues that are around us every single day here in the U.S.?
I get that. I've had those same thoughts. I honestly have. I don't understand the mind of God. Obviously who does. I think this part is my opinion. In the beginning, when I was getting a lot of this, I think this is my opinion. I'd ask why. Why do I need to know that information? Why is that valid? I would ask that of myself, of what was going on. And the only thing I could come to a conclusion about why would I be told certain things like that is for God to show that he's the one predicting, or he's the one, he can precisely say this person was going to die on this date.
Except that's not what happened.
God was just trying to tell me or paint a picture.
Except that's not what happened. At no point in any of this do you have any evidence or reason that God has done anything or said anything. Even if you were getting messages, even if you were hearing audible voices, you have nothing that tells you that it's God.
Then how else do I know? Okay. Here's another story.
I don't want another story. I'm going to be honest with you. No, I don't. I would like to know, like, Matt just asked, how do you know it's God? And you said, well, where else is it coming from? And that right there is painting a picture of why this is such a problem for us. Earlier on, we asked, how many times does this not work? And you said, I don't know, but I know when it does work. That's the definition of confirmation bias. And then you said, well, I don't know where else it could come from, which is the definition of the argument from ignorance. You're saying, I don't have any better explanation, and it seems like it might be this, so that's what I'm going with. And you're not checking, like, what? Let's say you do actually have these prophetic, instances where you're able to see, what if Satan's doing it? What if neither God nor Satan is real and it's freaking Hanuman or some other god that's doing it? What if you actually have some weird lump in your brain that's causing you to be able to tap into some ethereal plane that we don't know? What if it's a million other magical or non-magical things? Or what if it's non-existent and it's a hallucination and you actually didn't have that happen, but you seem to remember it in the aftermath? What if a million other options are there? And instead, you're jumping to, well, I believe in this God, so that's what it must be. And there's no other reason for it to be anything else.
But there's more, because
there is more. I'm being succinct.
You're sitting here you're flailing around, wondering why God would give you this ability or these messages when you have no evidence that God gave you any ability or any messages. And so for a moment, you infer that God wanted you out of the Catholic Church and wants you to help other people leave the Catholic Church. But if that were the goal, why couldn't God just tell all of those people to leave the Catholic Church? There's no reason why the all-powerful, all-knowing supposed governor and creator of the universe needs to give you vague messages that you don't even bother to track, that you can't or don't currently know are from him, in order to get you out of the Catholic Church and convince other people to leave. So even your attempted way of making sense of this doesn't make sense. So far, the only thing that makes sense is that you think you're getting impressions of things, and some of them, at a rate we don't know, are coming true or happening for reasons we don't know. That's all we've got. We can't even prove that any of that happened.
If the message, if the plan really was to help people leave the Catholic Church, do you know who would be a really good person to get this gift? The Pope.
Yeah, the Pope.
Give it to the Pope. If the Pope started having these visions and these ideas and this voice in their head, that would be great. Gina from New Mexico, maybe not as influential in terms of like pulling people away from the Catholic Church. You know what I mean?
Although I'm sure I would probably like you better than I like most of the popes.
Right.
Well, I didn't say that was the goal of God, to pull away people from that church. I'm just saying I didn't know.
You kind of hinted that was one of your suspicions, but you kind of hinted that was one of your suspicions because it drew you away from the Catholic Church. If God is giving you messages that draw you away from the Catholic Church, and then you're sharing those to draw the people away, if that's not God's goal, then God fucked up, didn't he?
No, because I didn't say that was the goal.
If God gave you messages, hang on, listen to me very carefully, Gina. Gina, just listen to me. If God gave you messages that resulted in you leaving the Catholic Church and you encouraging other people to leave the Catholic Church, then either that was God's intent or God fucked up, because God didn't tell you to not leave the Catholic Church. God hasn't told you that your impression of that was wrong. So either God had that goal or he fucked up.
Again, I don't think is the ultimate goal.
You think maybe it was just a step along the way, part of the plan?
So if God gives instructions to someone, gives a message to someone, and he says, hey, here's a message for you. And the person thinks, wow, I just got a message from God, and that's leading me to conclude that I should leave the Catholic Church. And then God gives that person more messages and does not say, oh, no, I didn't want you to leave the Catholic Church. then God was at least okay with you leaving the Catholic Church. And then if you are actually convincing other people based on your gift that they should potentially also consider moving to a more Bible-based church and leaving the Catholic Church, and God rewards you by giving you even more messages, then that's either what God wants, because first of all, nothing can happen that doesn't go according to God's plan. But either that's what God wanted or God fucked up. Those are the only two options.
Maybe it's just I don't understand exactly the end game with me, with him.
Gina, is it possible if I'm God, I am God right now, and I'm more real than any God that's ever given you any message, and I give you a message, and you go off and do something that was not my intended result?
I know.
Is the error on you or on me?
It'd be on me.
No.
Well,
I'm God.
So,
if
God
I can't communicate my meaning in clearly, then it's my fault. It's not your fault for failing to understand God. And if you go off, if I tell you, love your neighbor as yourself, and you decide that that means to go off and kill somebody, and I not only don't correct you, don't stop you, but then after you kill somebody, I reward you with more messages, is that your fault or my fault? If God is reinforcing your confusion, that's God's fault. How often can you get these messages?
Maybe monthly.
Cool. What was the last one?
It was just last week.
What was it?
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was walking my dog. I was coming back home, and my neighbor was having his roof work done, and there was a guy, one of the roofers was wearing a red jacket. So as I came around the corner, God said, talk to that guy and tell him about me, meaning the guy in the red jacket.
Oh.
So later on, when he got off the roof,
No, I'm sorry. I realized something that I didn't realize earlier. Please continue. I apologize for being rude. Please continue.
Oh, okay. When he finally got off the roof, I walked over to him and I awkwardly said, because I didn't know what to say, I said, God said to talk to you. I said, I admitted. I said, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. We kind of talked about a little bit about Jesus. He starts crying a little bit. This is a man I don't know. He starts crying a little bit and had admitted, he says, he and his family are going through a really tough time right now because his daughter was murdered last year. And so he says he finds it funny that someone comes over and wants to talk about God with him. He says it brought him. He said it brought him comfort.
That
Gina,
was just on Wednesday.
Can I ask a million questions really quick?
I just have one.
Okay, you go first then.
If I randomly walked up to 100 people and told them that God told me to talk to them, what percentage of them do you think would talk about how it's been a rough time and that it's really interesting that somebody thinks God wanted them to talk to them? What percentage do you think would react like that way?
I agree. It'd be really high. I agree.
Yeah. I'll let Forrest go now.
I had a similar question. So just out of curiosity, what was the ethnicity of the man that you were talking to?
I don't know. Maybe white or Hispanic.
White or Hispanic, we'll say. Okay.
He had white skin with dark hair.
Okay, sure. Well, let's try both. So Hispanic Americans, very high religiosity among that community. White Americans, especially evangelical Christians, very high religiosity. Hispanic Americans, more like Catholicism, right? So you have the two groups that you've suggested, very high religiosity. You live in New Mexico, very religious part of the country, if I remember right. You're talking to someone who is a construction worker working on a roof. Again, disproportionately high rates of religion among, someone who's going to be in a labor position. Probably, maybe this guy is very educated and has a great job and works in this, who knows, but like not a highly educated position of labor. So unlikely to fall into that category where you tend to have more and more people being atheists there. So you have a part of the country that's very religious, with two ethnicities possible that are very religious, in a line of work that leads me to assume this person might also be very religious. And you said he's falling on hard times. The daughter being killed is a bit of a wild card there, but who in this country at this moment isn't having some hard times? Everything's going for shit for everybody. The economy sucks, the roads suck, the schools suck, the government sucks. And yeah, as we just talked about a minute ago, gun violence is extremely high, especially in places like New Mexico. There's a lot of gun violence there. So not overwhelmingly shocked that someone had a family member die. So you're talking to someone who is statistically very likely to be religious about a religion that you also share. Yeah, it's going to be touching to them. And when I groaned a minute ago, rudely, I admit, when I groaned rudely a minute ago because of what you said, it was because I didn't put it together, what you were saying, that I heard God tell me I need to talk to this person, so I did, and it mattered to them. I've heard that exact story. I'm not even a one word difference. That exact story about 10 bazillion freaking times, because I grew up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which there's double digit churches. I live in Tulsa now. I've lived in several places around the Tulsa and Broken Arrow area. If you're from here, these are all very close communities. This is all like, there's always been double digit churches within walking distance of my house. Every person that I went to school with has told me that story at one time or another. I just felt God tell me I needed to talk to this person who was the greeter at Walmart, and they told me that they'd been having a hard time at home, and I got them to go back to church, and they really loved it, and it really meant something to them, and that just reinforced my faith. I'm like, I've heard it a billion times because I live in a very religious community that is predominantly white and predominantly evangelical Christian because of it, and so everybody thinks the same thing and behaves the same way. So like, this went from like an interesting study in confirmation bias, and I wonder why you might think that way, and maybe we can suss it out, to an extremely, extremely common story that I cannot believe it's taken me 27 minutes to realize I've heard a million times before. Just that's kind of where I'm at right now, Gina. It just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks that this is the same thing that I grew up with.
So Gina, let me do this because we have nothing to go on. We have nothing to verify. We have nothing at all to consider, and nothing that I would find particularly impressive that we can verify, and you seem to be reaching conclusions that you can't justify. So let's do this. Are you able to ask God to give you messages about things?
I don't think I've done that. No.
Well, give it a try. So you should ask God to tell you exactly what you need to say to us, what it is that we need to hear, and then call us back when God gives you a word of knowledge about us.
Yeah.
About you? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so something that would convince us to because like, what a great thing. God, if your God could convince you of what to say to us, to convince us, we could change all sorts of minds together. Imagine how many people watching the show right now would be immensely swayed if Matt or I were to be like, oh shit, you know what? Jesus, yeah.
God evidently told you to talk to somebody working on a roof. Did he tell you to call our show? I doubt it. But if there is a God and he knows things that you and I don't know, then God could easily give you a message that you could then call in and give to us that we would have to accept.
Right, but would you honestly, let's pretend that happened. Would you honestly believe
Gina, don't
me?
say it. I tried to stop you, Gina. I just explained to you.
What did I say?
Shut up. I just explained to you that if there is a God, he should know exactly what to say to us that would convince us of what you're saying or what message he has, or that he knows my inner thoughts or anything at all like that. I gave you a way to test this, which, by the way, you haven't made any attempt to test this. You don't you think you're getting messages from a fucking God, and you don't bother to keep a diary or find out how many of them are true. This is the same thing I hear over and over again. It is absolutely garbage epistemology where you just go with your gut. But if there is a God, he knows exactly what I need to hear. And I gave you a way to test it. And your first response was to doubt that I would actually be honest. Fuck you, Gina.
That's so fucking, that's such a cop-out, dude. Like, you understand that? That's such a cop-out. God knows what to say that would convince us instantly. And you're like, yeah, but you lie. God knows what to say that we. God knows what to say that we wouldn't lie.
I did not.
God knows what to say that would be so compelling that we wouldn't be able to be dishonest about it.
Are you trying to pretend like we're the stupid ones who didn't hear what you actually said to us when you doubted that we would honestly reply?
No, I said maybe you would believe me.
That's
I didn't
bullshit.
Say you would
Rewind
lie,
it.
I would lie.
Rewind it. Rewind the tape. You were giggling and mocking whether or not we would reply honestly. Don't fucking lie to me, Gina.
We would have to believe it.
Lying to yourself. You are busy lying to yourself. You're not going to lie about me or to me on the show.
No, I'm not lying.
You are. I can rewind it.
No.
Yes, I can rewind it. I'm not going to bother, though. Gina, go off and think about it and talk to God and see if God will give you some sort of message for us. Until then, I don't need to hear from you. I don't need to have people question my honesty when I'm sitting here engaging with you, listening to you for 30 minutes. Give us absolutely nothing, but you think you're getting messages from a God. And at every opportunity, when we talk about how we might go about testing this or what we could explore, not once did we accuse you of dishonesty. Not once did we doubt that you were getting anything at all. All we did was ask questions. And when we gave you a way to test the protective safety mechanisms in your brain that keep you deluded in religious think, caused you to doubt our honesty, rather than to consider a test that could demonstrate the truth. You don't give a shit about the truth. You don't care if your conclusions are true. You just want to feel a certain way. You want to feel like God gave you a special message. You want to feel like God wanted you to go talk to people. If you start preaching at people on planes like these people in the viral videos, how are you different? It's the most obnoxious stuff. And when we came to you and said, here's a way we could potentially test it, you decided to question our honesty. That's fucked up, Gina. That's absolutely fucked up.
I've been watching the chat the whole time here, and like people.
Did not.
Here, I'm going to mute you. If you're just going to sit there and keep fucking lying to me, you did, in fact, question. You laughed and said, yeah, but would you really, honestly? It's fucking shameful that you're trying to fucking gaslight me on my own fucking show.
We've had people this whole 30 minutes.
Yes, you are.
In the chat.
Goodbye. I'm hanging up on you now. Go off and reconsider your life choices. You're not fucking gaslighting me on my own fucking show.
Hey, it's Jimmy Snow here. I'm the executive producer on the line with a fun fact. Did you know 100% of the hosts of this channel enjoy eating? It's true. And if you would like to help contribute to their ongoing addiction, you can do so by going over to Patreon or becoming a channel member. There are show-specific, host-specific tiers. Those are awesome. But also, you can leave a super thanks with a special little highlighted comment. You can like, comment, and subscribe. All of those will help fill our whittle bellies. By the way, check out some of this content over here. Algorithm, what next?